All kingdoms swear their money is safe. Every state claims its promises will last forever. And every time, history shows they are wrong. From Rome to France, from the Confederacy to Lebanon, people have woken up one morning to find the money in their hands losing value, their salaries becoming meaningless, and their futures taken from them by systems they once believed were solid. Collapse is not a coincidence. Collapse is the rule. The real question is not whether financial systems will collapse, but how you protect yourself when they do. The illusion of permanence is the most dangerous financial mistake you can make. We look at our bank accounts and national currencies and think they are unshakable. But money is not unshakable. Money is trust. And trust can disappear in a single day. That is why history is both brutal and valuable. Every collapse leaves behind lessons, patterns, and warnings. It shows what truly protects wealth and what turns to dust. And if you pay attention, you will see that the survivors of these disasters were not the ones who trusted the most, but the ones who doubted first. Let's consider the Byzantine Empire. It is often remembered as the eastern half of Rome that managed to survive for 1,000 years after the fall of the Western Empire. At the heart of its economy was the gold coin called the solidus. It was so trusted that merchants across the Middle East, Asia, and Europe accepted it without question. For centuries, it was the closest thing the medieval world had to a global reserve currency. But here's the strange part. You would think they had learned from Rome's earlier mistake with the silver denarius. Emperors had continuously reduced its content until it became little more than a tin-coated metal. We've told that story before. But no. Centuries later, the Byzantines made the same mistake with gold. They began reducing its purity. They mixed in cheaper materials. At first, no one noticed. Then trust broke. The coin that once sustained Mediterranean trade turned into just another political fiction. The debasement of money destroyed trust, and with it, the stability of the Byzantine economy. So what remained? Not paper promises. Not government decrees. Merchants who quietly accumulated real gold or land outside the empire preserved their wealth. Everyone else watched their money disappear. The first timeless lesson is this: governments cannot resist the temptation to dilute their money. And when they do, real value flees to assets they cannot counterfeit. But not every collapse comes from rulers manipulating money. Sometimes it comes from unexpected shocks. In the mid-14th century, Europe faced one of the most devastating pandemics in history, the Black Death. Between 1347 and 1351, nearly half of Europe's population died. Cities emptied, villages vanished, and trade routes collapsed. But the economic story is not just disaster. When half the labor force disappears, labor becomes valuable. Survivors can demand higher wages. Food and land become more abundant compared to people. Those with cash, silver, goods, or simply the ability to work gained advantages they had never imagined. Land that once cost a fortune could be bought cheaply. Houses stood empty. Fields went unworked. The market shifted in favor of buyers. If this sounds familiar, it should. We saw a modern version during COVID. Supply chains broke down, governments printed trillions to keep the system alive, and those with liquidity bought assets while those living paycheck to paycheck fell behind. The lesson is harsh but true. Crises reward those with reserves and punish those without. The banking collapse of Renaissance Florence shows another truth: too big to fail is a lie. In the 1340s, Florence was Europe's financial center. Powerful banking families like the Bardi and Peruzzi dominated. But when England's King Edward III failed to repay massive loans, the banks collapsed. Depositors were ruined. Trade stopped. The lesson is clear: being big does not mean being safe. Institutions exist to profit, not to save you. This lesson repeats every century, from the collapse of Lehman Brothers in 2008 to Lebanese banks freezing accounts in 2019. The American Civil War was also a financial disaster. Both the North and the South printed money. But as more money entered the system, its value dropped. In the South, inflation spiraled out of control. Salaries became worthless. People had to carry bags of money just to buy a loaf of bread. In the end, paper money died. What held value did not: land, food, gold. The same happened during the French Revolution. A paper currency called the assignat was printed excessively and lost its value. Farmers refused to accept paper. Food, silver, and real goods became valuable. In the 1997 Asian financial crisis, another lesson emerged: borrowing in someone else's currency can be deadly. When currencies collapsed, debts became impossible to repay. Economies shrank and unemployment surged. The winners were the same as always, those holding dollars or assets abroad. And then came Lebanon. In 2019, banks shut their doors. People couldn't access their money. The currency lost more than 90% of its value. A lifetime of savings was wiped out. The painful truth was this: the money in your bank is not truly yours. It is a loan you may not get back in a crisis. So what's the solution? History doesn't give a single answer, but it gives a clear direction. Real assets, liquidity, avoiding debt, diversification, and most importantly, the ability to produce value. Because in a crisis, money loses meaning, but production never does. People still need food, repairs, trade, and those who can provide these will not stay poor for long. That is the real protection. Every crisis is a transfer, from those who trust to those who prepare, from paper to reality, from passive savers to active builders. History has shown this again and again. So the question is, when the system collapses, will you be left holding promises or real value? History does not repeat itself. But if you ignore it, it will destroy you all the same.